The strategic and geopolitical context in the Western Pacific is shifting. It's increasingly affected by a series of political, geopolitical, economic, and military and security transitions that are introducing new dynamics into old competitions. It's particularly the case with a handful of maritime, border, and boundary contests where nation states are holding maximalist claims about islands sitting either atop or near abundant natural resources or critical sea lanes of communication. These tense transitions are also driving more and more direct challenges to the status quo in the Western Pacific. There are several military and security focused transitions that are driving these competitions. Three stand out as being most affecting. The first is Japan, the normalization of Japan's defense and security policy, and in particular its investment in capabilities and organizational restructures focused on pressing and defending its claims in the East China Sea and among island chains in its southwest. Second is the prolonged and sometimes challenged U.S. attempt to rebalance its geopolitical attentions and naval capabilities to the Western Pacific. Of course, this has been undermined to a certain degree both by domestic political issues as well as security contingencies in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. And last, and I think probably the most important, is China's ongoing military modernization effort, which is focused on the development and acquisition of a suite of linked, technologically advanced, and asymmetric capabilities designed to thwart U.S. power projection in the Western Pacific and create cordons where the U.S. and its allies and partners, particularly Japan and Korea, are unable to operate in land, in the air, and critically in this primarily maritime domain on the surface of the sea. So what we're seeing is that the combination of these developments on top of the contested borders and boundaries issues are driving up the risk of crises evolving through either miscalculation or not entirely purposeful escalation. We're also seeing that the investment in new types of military capabilities and new focus areas for military capabilities are driving a series of military competitions that will be central to understanding the future parameters of the military balance in the Western Pacific. Now, China's A2AD focused military modernization is not expected to reach full or more full maturity until about 2025 or perhaps later. And it's still affected by a series of potential challenges. There are technological challenges, especially around the development of engines. There are operational art and operational experience challenges. There are challenges related to organization and structure. And probably most strategic of all is the challenge related to the potential for a Chinese hard economic landing that would undermine the aggressive defense spending that has buttressed the PLA modernization to date. Still, the steady and significant progress of China's military modernization is already driving challenges to U.S.-weighted imbalances across the Western Pacific that to date have served to ensure stability and security in the region. Well, there are competitions playing out across the land, air, sea, and cyber domains in the Western Pacific. But given that the theater is so maritime focused, we monitor four big naval competitions. The first is anti-ship missiles versus sea-based missile defense. And China's investment in a greater quantity and larger variety of anti-ship missiles combined with its continued development of the DF-21D carrier killer ballistic missile is extending the range of China's A2AD cordons and I think more fundamentally challenging current concept of U.S. and allied missile defense. Second is the competition in the C4ISR and electromagnetic spectrum. The U.S. Navy in particular is really focused on its electromagnetic hygiene and on understanding and addressing a series of mission critical competitions in the electromagnetic spectrum. two areas stand out. The first is using spoofing and jamming technologies to affect the trajectory, navigation, and targeting of these new Chinese missile capabilities before they pose a direct and proximate threat to sea-based missile defense. Second, the Navy is also focused on addressing the threat posed by the proliferation of low-cost and easily accessible, sometimes commercial technologies that could be used to directly threaten high-tech, extremely advanced military platforms and systems. The third big competition is the undersea competition, and it's difficult to overstate the importance of this competition in the Western Pacific and the strategic significance of the current widely accepted U.S. dominance in this domain, though there are signs, some initial indicators, that this dominance may be difficult to sustain over the long term. Most notably, a Congressional Research Services report in July of 2014 noted that the U.S. SSN fleet will drop below the prescribed minimum by the Navy, 48 boats in 2025, and not come back to that level until 2035, precisely the period of time in which it is expected China's A2AD capabilities will come into a more full maturity. And this clearly raises some pretty big strategic and operational questions about how the U.S. intends to maintain what has been a, to date, very stabilizing dominance of the undersea domain in the Western Pacific. And last is the amphibious competition. Clearly the ongoing and sort of wide variety of maritime border and boundary disputes have placed a premium, particularly in China and Japan, on investment in and extension of and exercising of amphibious capabilities. And this competition is playing out at a time when the head of the U.S. Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel Locklear, has openly stated his concern about an insufficient amount of U.S. amphibious capabilities in the region. I think these competitions and others that have less of a pronounced maritime and naval component to them are likely to persist, and they are likely to be iterative, and they are likely to be interactive. And this interactive response, counter-response dynamic will ensure that these competitions could proceed along trajectories that don't track to current observable trends. And so I think that places a premium on military and intelligence communities really focused monitoring these competitions, monitoring procurement plans, monitoring technological developments, particularly the potential for disruptive technological innovation, monitoring concepts of operations and political and geopolitical shifts that may prioritize different capabilities and competitions over others. And so given the importance of monitoring these particular competitions, IHS Aerospace Defense and Security is actually going to produce a Western Pacific military competitions monitor, a multi-client study through our thought leadership program in 2015, probably for release around the end of February.